Hello, welcome everyone, Mark Session again, and today we will sculpt a female head. It's a beginner tutorial, but it's not really focusing on how to use ZBrush. However, it's beginner sculpting wise, alright? So if you know the basics of ZBrush, you can definitely do this, but it's more focusing on the sculpting process itself. So the first thing, we have to have some references. So let me go in here and close Lightbox and just open up the divider, and I have a couple of references prepared. So texture palette, drop it, and importing the first texture, and that will be in the desktop. So head sculpt, and a few things are prepared, so that will be the front first, and opening this up, selecting the picture and adding it to Spotlight. And when Spotlight is open, I can go into import and select the rest of it. So rev quarter and rev side, and open all of these up. And right now, what is enlarged, if we want to make them even, we can click on this window, and that will create an even look. Now for this, I think I will just move it to the bottom here, and maybe this direction. Okay, I will leave it as it is because the thumbnail is over there. Alright, pressing Z will turn off the Spotlight editing function, the dial. But if we want to work on anything like this, be careful, because Spotlight right now is active, and that means we can only work through Spotlight. That one is actually acting like a filter and like a stencil, so we're sculpting through, painting through this. To turn off that functionality, samples, Spotlight projection, and we're good to go. Now Spotlight is a whole different system. So what does it mean? When we are going to open up the Lightbox, we can double click here, and we can actually just jump and load a project independently from Lightbox. Alright, so we have this one. Now let me just make the correction and put this aside, and just press Z again. Now the reason I'm using Lightbox instead of using image planes. Image plane is, you know, the document, and you can set up the back the whole system. So we can where is it? Yeah, okay. So we have draw mode. In draw mode we have front and back. We can load a picture, but usually it's not giving the best results, honestly, because the face is never perfectly symmetrical. The light conditions never fit to the view, and it will generate a perception that your model is, anyway, it will look off, because of course the picture is originated from one single situation, and you cannot replicate it until you are making the full texture, the full material settings, the full rendering, and that's a completely different process. So keep the pictures aside, use Spotlight or use the see-through mode to help this process, but this is the best advice I can give you. Alright, so this is practically, this should be a Dynamesh model. Set to 64. Let me show the resolution. Don't forget to turn on the resolution time to time on and off, and see the wires for yourself. Alright, so that's it. This is a good base. Let me walk out, BMV, and for the move brush, and set the brush size to a fairly high size. You can see it's as big as the sphere. And right now I'm focusing on creating the bounding box. Alright, so I'm looking for this egg shape. X symmetry is on. We are in the front view, so just looking for that basic X shape. Alright, and from many directions, still there. Okay, so I'm not looking for any side views or anything, just the front, and try to create that roundness. And probably the chin is a little bit more, so that is just the basic roundness. And I see instantly, okay, we have this left over, so try to fix it, push it in. Now moving to the side, what I like to use, you can use this head to rotate, accordingly, but I like to use to start rotating and pressing shift, and it will snap into the actual position. And walking through, so what we have, I'm looking for the lines. I'm just setting up parallel lines in this case, and looking for a bounding box. Again, bounding box. What's the height of the overall thing? What's the width of the overall thing? Looking for the side. What is the direction of the forehead? It's a little bit more flat, so let me increase the brush size and start pushing this back a little bit. All right, so that could be good. All right, so the chin is much more sharp, much more articulated, so I'll pull this out and try to refine that. The chin itself is in front of the forehead, so forehead is here. I'm looking for these clues. All right, so it's not 100%, but usually it's almost in line, or the chin is a little bit forward. Okay, definitely we need the skull volume. The skull volume should be somewhere here and ends at the earlobe, and then the neck will come in. The neck will be a separated model, so I will just push this in until I can generate the jawline. All right, so I'm looking for the jawline. Now, the whole thing is evolving constantly. So I see, okay, the face areas are looking fine. This is a little bit too much round. Too much roundness here, so I'll push this in a little bit. It's less round, looking for that. Okay, so it's going straight up, then there's a roundness, and there's not flat, but relatively in a large curve. And also we have some volume here. So I think this, I try to forget about the hair and imagine that the hair is about 2 centimeters thick. So I try to follow this contour of the forehead and look for that. All right, so here will the neck join, probably. Okay, what's the jawline? The jawline is, this one is almost horizontal. So what the technique is pretty simple. I try to break down all the decisions to yes or no decisions. Is the jawline good? No. Why is it not good? Is it the angle? Yes. Is it the length? Length looks fine, but the angle looks off. So what I want to do is just pull this a little bit and try to push in and try to establish a good pose for that. Good amount. Okay, so where is the line of Joe? Now we're switching to a different brush. This is the DEM standard, and this is just a temporary solution, but I try to make a note for myself. Okay, the jawline should be somewhere here. Okay, is it flat now? It's too flat, so I'm switching back to BLV, move brush, and try to alter the jawline. All right, I like it a lot. Okay, where's the ear? Probably the ear should be placed, but before we do that, it's time to fix the head from the front. So here also we have a flat area. Now that flat area, we can try to use the move brush and give it a go. Can you see how flattened it is? So this side is there. I think this one is too much, so I'm just pulling this back, and I'm rotating around. Now sometimes I like to use this particular material, but there's another material, is the basic 2, which one is a little bit more shiny. It's not good for constantly using it, but sometimes to check the shapes, it is better. Can you see how the light is changing? Okay. Now, as you see, because I'm using fairly large brush, I can easily make changes and it will not become lumpy. So keep that in mind. The basic simple material, this is what also works fairly well. Okay. Right, this is the madcap gray default, and switching back. Right, so here we are. Now the face starts the shaping. This area is still a bit much, and be careful because there's hair and there's the ear, but the ear is still missing, so it's really hard to make a decision on the go without having the ear placed. But right now it looks fine. I think this is a little bit flatter, so we have a chin, but this should be a little bit back. chin is there, but this should be a little bit flattened and corrected. Okay. There we are. Also a little bit wider. So that is now a little bit better chin. Probably this one is a little bit higher in position. And I don't think it's that smooth, so I will use a smoothing shift to smooth out things a little bit, and control and drag to refresh the model. Alright, because it's Dynamesh. Alright, so this is the main volume. I'm thinking of the volume all the times, especially in the beginning. If I'm looking at the bottom, this looks fairly promising. I think it's a little bit back heavy, so I will just pull it back. And as you see, I'm not going forward, taking care of any ears, nose, eye position. This is just by looking around and creating the volume at first. Maybe the width is too much here, and this area is a little bit higher usually. Okay, so there's a nice skull shape. It's not perfectly smooth, so I will just use a little bit of a smoothness, like a nice egg shape. Okay, so this is the position, this is the situation where we can progress forward to place the eyes. Now the biggest challenges for the eyes is the actual level of eyesight is somewhere in the middle of the head. So that should be somewhere here. But it is, we just can't start placing the eyeballs. So we have to start somewhere else. And we can start with the cavity for the eye socket. Now, but that cavity is much larger than the eye area. So it starts from the eyebrow, and here's the eyebrow. And we have this kind of a mask. Imagine that she has a big Ray-Ban aviator glass, and try to make that. All right, so I'm switching to move and using the Alt key and pushing in. So just pushing in a little bit and check it. All right, so maybe it's a little bit higher, and smoothing this out from the side view. From the side view, here's the corner of the eye. So definitely this should be a little bit more deeper here. All right, now we can start thinking of the rhythm. So forehead is a little bit flat. Here we have this little slope around the nose. And yes, we have some kind of a nose starting. Okay, just pulling out. Yeah, not exactly like this. It would be better with just simply going to the front and using Alt and just pulling this out. And then starting. So whatever I do with move, if you're holding down Alt key, don't forget you can push in or pull out depending on the direction you move. Okay, so this is how it looks from the side and the front. Maybe this should be a little bit wider. And of course the nose, that's not that accurate, so let me just move it and pull it back a bit. And we don't have much resolution yet. This is basically just a very simple resolution, low resolution. So the main goal is nothing else, just to place the volumes, just to prepare for the rest. All right, so the chin is a little bit more out. And using some smoothing control drag to refresh. The nose is not that wide here, but here it is wider. And I'm just looking for the volumes. Again, looking for the volumes. The forehead compared to the face is a little bit longer in my model. So if I try to look for this distance and this distance, here it's a little bit off. So we just drag with a big brush. Now, this is why you don't want to start with details. If you start with details and not just making this very simple mock-up, it will become really hard to alter things. It will be really hard to change on the fly, right? Because that's so many information already presented in the model. So just reduce it, all right? We're not moving forward until the basic volume is not corrected. Okay, this little line where the zygomatic arc is placed in the level of the ear, this should be present. And as you see, it's not really there. I have to select this area and push this back a little bit more. This one, if I'm rotating from this angle, it looks like it's missing from this volume. So I'm holding Alt and try to pulling, and I'm looking for the silhouette. So the silhouette can help a lot. We don't have the neck yet. I will make the neck just in a second. But sometimes, here's a little tip, sometimes the smoothing itself is enough. So instead of moving things all around, smoothing is reducing the volume slightly, okay? And you have a little bit more control than using the brush and try to push the polygons. Okay, I like this rhythm much better. Pulling, maybe this one should be a little bit behind. Okay, this chin, something happened here, so I'm using again just smooth. For instead of sculpting it away, I'm using the smooth now. Okay, this resolution is absolutely not enough to create the mouth and the eyes and the eyelids and everything. But before I will go up higher, I will start making the ears. So holding down Control, start making a mask, and this mask has multiple purposes. Using Ctrl and Alt and just remove from the mask. It's before we actually making the ear, right before we can just draw the position of the ear. So the ear is sitting on the edge of the jawline. So if the jawline is somewhere here, it sits there, which one is okay. The earlobe is somewhere in level of the nose, and the top of the ear, the helix, is somewhere in level with the eye. So I'm happy with this. Now, sometimes this patch is a little bit smaller. Let me invert it, Control, and use the move brush, BMV, large size, and just pull it out, and pull it out, and flatten this slightly, and just looking for the shape, and just pull. Can you see? This is why if it's smaller, we can pull it a little bit higher, so then the helix could be formed a little bit more easily. All right, because now it's fairly distorted. So Control and drag, and Control drag again to refresh. Okay, now perspectivity. This is how it looks with perspectivity off. This is how it looks with perspectivity. It's a good idea to check it time to time. And the truth is somewhere in the middle. Alright, so that's it. And the ears are, if I draw a line like this, that could be the ears. So definitely her ears are not that standing out. And the helix, the inside, is standing out a little bit. Looking for the angles, I think this size is okay. From the side view, it looks fine for me, but if the angle of the ear is a little bit off, so the angle of the ear is much more straight up instead of this angled thing. So what I will do is just move this top part a little bit back and this to the front, and just using some smoothing, Control drag, refresh. So that's what I'm looking for. Now the other thing is that common issue with ears, if you leave them flat, it can throw off the perception. And we don't have contours. We are working with volumes, but we can play with shades and we can play with shadows. So right away, I'm just pushing this in a little bit. And that little shadow can help to understand the whole structure. And I'm pulling this skin a little bit inside. That will shape the helix, right? So Control drag it. You can see just this change to have some shadow inside really highlighted the whole thing. Okay, so that is the main volume for the head, and we are still at 64. Now this is, let me show again the wires, because it's depending on the size of the model. Sometimes the 64 is way off, but usually it's a low resolution. Okay, 64 is perfectly fine. The more resolution you have, the harder to create large volumes, and usually throws off the thing. This one, the low resolution, is forcing you to focus on the main shapes. This is why it's suggested. But once we are going to the details, of course, we have to increase the resolution. All right, what about the neck? So subtool, and we don't need that much visible count. That reduces displace, insert, and insert a cylinder 3D, and W, and just move it away, and scale it down, and looking for, again, for the angles. So it's definitely too much. Let me rotate this, move it a little bit higher. Okay, what is the angle? I try to place my pen here and move it and try to register the angle of the hand, and I'm just moving my hand and using the same register, right, and visually check it. So this is something that can help you, that when you do this move, when you try to trace your model, that movement can help you to understand the actual angles here and there. This is the angle, this is the angle, this is the main, this is where the spine should be. Spine should be here. Okay. And definitely this is just a simple cylinder, and from the front it is, here's this jawline, and jawline is a little bit overhanging. So I think this, if we just reduce it slightly, this will be okay. What about the length? Let me go in higher. That looks okay. So this should be also a Dynamesh model. So geometry and Dynamesh is 100 and let me go back to the 64 and hit Dynamesh and control drag and just start shaping the X symmetry. Start shaping the very basics. So the back, pull this out a bit. Okay, where we are. She has a fairly long neck. The neck shape, yeah, this one is going in. So we are pulling this in. And it's much easier. If you don't see it, if it disturbs you, you can go switch to transparency. And then sometimes it helps a bit more to set the volumes. Okay, just big. So that could be an angle. This one is a little bit more articulate. And pulling down. And we definitely have a little bit more in here. More. There's more width. Control drag. Okay, if you get lost and the figure is laying down, you can always use the hand to get back the stuff. Okay, and this muscle will be presented. I will not use any typical sculpting brushes yet, just simple move. Basically, I've used only move, smooth, and a flatten brush, if I remember. I have used this for very small amounts, and yeah, the width should be reduced, but the width at the top should be a little bit increased, all right, like a goblet. And the back of the head, the trapezius muscle, is going on this direction, so that's just the basic stuff. Okay, there we are. And yes, of course, the clavicles and all the stuff. Maybe just pulling this in and increase the width can help. Okay, there we are. Adding to the volume, control and drag. Here we are. Now we can weld these things all together. The easiest way to do it is, and what I like to do is going to Subtool and select the top one and merge, and select the top and merge down. Now everything is one object, and because it's Dynamesh, if you hit Control and drag, it will weld together, and then we can look around the contours. So smoothing this out, and just use the move brush and looking for the chin line. Okay, where we are, that works nicely. Okay, the back of the head, that should be definitely a little bit smoother, and maybe this angle is a little bit off. So I'm using smoothing, pulling back some volume, and the back of the figure is a bit out. All right, so just basic corrections. Now we have this main volume, and something is missing, the clavicle, so definitely there is a kind of a shadow appearing here, so that's negative. Okay, it was just too sensitive, just a slight thing. We also have a hole, not hole exactly, but there's a cavity around this area, and here the clavicle will come in, and of course the muscle is missing. Now let me switch quickly to the BCB clay buildup brush, and we can start creating details with this, but the resolution was still not that high, so we are reaching a point where we should increase the resolution. Just looking for the muscle. It's starting from behind the ear, it sticks to the skull, and it's going through it. As you see, because we have a basic shape, it's pretty much obvious to design, and so it has a twist in the 3D space. But if you have a basic shape, this twist originates from the underlying shapes, the cylindrical shape and the trapezius and all the things. And if you have those shapes prepared, as we do, we just have to basically just trace, create a straight line between the 2 points, and the shape of the muscle will be created. Okay, so that is fine. Now this is basically the first step to create a portrait base. This is a time to increase resolution. Dynamesh, let me turn off Dynamesh, set it to 128, basically doubling, power F2, and Dynamesh again, and Shift F, and see what it does, and Control drag. If it doesn't update, hold down Shift, tap on something, Control drag, and now it may refresh. Alright, so we have a little bit more resolution. Honestly, I don't think this resolution will be enough. So if I'm using the brush, the BCB brush, and try to create the eyelid, it will be still a little bit sloppy. So if I'm filling this up, this is how it looks, and that's not enough. Okay, so selecting the good resolution for the actual tool is pretty important. So Shift F, make sure, okay, we have these things, and I've tested and I've seen it with my own eyes. It's just not enough, so I'll just double it to 156, and Control drag, or tap and Control drag, and it may update, and Shift F to check it. And as you see, don't be fooled, this one is a much higher resolution. This is just not smooth yet with the brush. Okay, so it just keeps the original data, and because the original data was coarse, this one looks coarse as well, but this is actually a pretty good resolution. And if we check with the brush, the BCB brush, now it has a different result. So I'll try to fill in, and what I'm looking for is this line. All right, so just trying to push this in. Also the bridge of the nose, that's a little bit more articulate, so I'm using the Alt key and remove. You're looking for the bridge of the nose. Here's the bridge of the nose. Is it the width is okay? It seems to be okay. The eyebrows are starting from here, going flat a little bit and then turning back down. So that I just want to keep in mind. Smoothing these things around. Okay, this may be the bottom. We still need to pull and add. Now here, for this particular thing, I can reduce the size and try to build up the volume, because we need to this thing, even if we don't have the eyelashes, this is a little bit more outside. So let me just starting to add volume, and I'm using some smoothing as well, adding the volume and smoothing. There are different techniques. Some techniques may not use smoothing at all, but right now, especially for the beginner, it's much easier to understand things if you have a cleaner shape. All right, so once you have more experience, you will just create crazy sculptings, and you will see the shape underlying it. But if you are just beginning, usually you like to have a better view on things, and when you have a smoother face, the reflections can help you a lot more. All right, so again, there's different sculpting approaches. This is just one of them. All right, here's something interesting point. This is the center. This is the inside corner of the eye. So what I'll use a BMV move brush and try to grab this and push this in position. So looking for the little corner. We also have a corner outside. Yes or no questions. Which one is higher? The outer corner is higher slightly than the inside corner. Is it true? Yes. If it's too high, that will be a cat looking eye. All right, so I'm just pulling this a little bit down. What else? Maybe we have some more rounded look. Okay, we have definitely a little bit more volume. I see there is a volume in here. So to do that, we are going back to the BCB brush and creating that volume. And it's typical for especially for younger faces where the skin is more full. Then you have these fills. Okay, so that is quite important. Can see how the line is shaping, so that there will be the eyebrow placed. Okay, so that's where we are now. We don't go any further and don't start to make perfect eyes. Just switching back to the BDS, Damien Standard brush, and just starting to separate the nose from the rest. So this is nothing else. I'm not really creating wrinkles. The purpose of this is not that. The purpose is to separate, because if there's no separation, it's hard to tell where the nose is actually and how long it is. Okay, the angle looks fine. Let me switch to the BMV brush and push. Okay, the nose is a little bit more, it's curvy. I think the model's nose is a bit more pointy. The slope of the nose, it's a little bit too much. So usually in the middle, there is a slight bump. Even if the nose is sloped, there, if you are looking for a realistic approach, there is a slight bump. Now here's something else. We need to push this back, this area, push this back a little bit. Push this back. The bottom eyelid is still not there. We are just creating a volume because this piece of skin here, so this patch, this area under the eye and between the mouth, that is one big piece, and that big piece starts from here and it crawls up and reaches to the bridge of the nose. So it starts from here and just falling that direction. So let me go to the BCB and just paint it. So this is basically the patch I'm talking about. This is it. So I'm just loading back a little bit of volume and using the smooth brush and look for that. Okay, so that's the volume I'm talking about. That is the volume I'm talking about. Okay, now it looks odd. Why? Because here something is missing. So we need to build up build up this area to shape the bottom eyelid. So going back. Okay. More up here. This is just, we definitely need more, and it is hard to make now. I know I have something in my mind that helps me to create this, so I have a vision how it should look at the end. But for you to help, it's much easier if we starting and creating the eyeballs. So we will follow with that. Alright, so time to place an eyeball. So insert and sphere 3D, and yes, this should be much smaller. So let me pull this out using shift key and rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, scale it down, move it and place it there. Look at it from the front view. Alright, still scaling it. Now that looks promising, and turning on polyframe, shift F to be actually see the pole, the center of this. Pull this back, looking for some values. Let me press Z and just scale these up slightly to give some more room for the information. Okay, Z, going back. So there we are. Now this is one eye. I think I will work with only one piece. It may help on the go because I can go back and forth and see what's going on underneath the eye. So that's it. Shift F and go back to draw mode, switching to a paintbrush BPA, and we need the transform palette and activating symmetry. This is left to right. I have local symmetry turned on, but what I want to do is actually I want to paint in a circle. So to that I will activate radial symmetry, which one is this x-axis, but x-axis is not working, but y-axis is still not working. Z-axis is pointing towards us, so that's just great. Smaller size, the color should be, it's somewhat like a brownish tone. Brown, closer to green, but yeah, brown and green mix. But don't be surprised, this will become fully dark, but as we start painting it will just update. Let me move out because we are interactively changing the color on every item. So let me just create this and look away and look for the proportions, which one looks pretty neat. The center should be fairly dark, and we can choose some lighter green tone, so some greenish tone in here, and maybe the outer part or their edge is a little bit darker as well. Okay, the resolution is fairly small, so if we want to make it more accurate I can press Ctrl D, and then with the higher resolution we can actually do it well. If something is too big, for example in this case, I can press C, pick the information, the color information, and then it is a little bit easier to paint back. So C is record color or crop color. Alright, let's see again, and just make it this little bit smaller or a little bit larger, I guess. Oh, this will be fine. No, a little bit larger. So C again, slightly larger. That's it. And of course, if we want to paint some different tones to the iris, we can actually do it radially. So we can actually paint like this and pick a different tone, maybe a little bit dark as well, so that can add up. See again, and just creating some variations. Okay, that's fine for now. And going back to the white color, and we have now an iris created. Okay, I'm not sure about the size. Probably this needs to be a little bit bigger. So let me select the size, pick the color and add some more. Let me zoom out, going back to the white. Alright, that's fine now. To get back the standard layout for the symmetry, we are just switching X, activate symmetry, so there's nothing there yet. Alright, switching back to the head. Alt and tap on the head, and with the BCB clay buildup brush, we can just go and follow the process. So I'm holding now Alt key, remove some from this and build up on this area. Maybe the eyes are a bit too far, so I will switch to the eye and move it slightly and switch back to the head and use the ZBrush to make the corrections. So right now it's just only about placement. So I'm not really worried too much about how it looks. I'm much more worried about how it is placed, the position. Is it centered or not? You can't really make it work until it's not set up correctly. Okay, so here we go, just smoothing things out. This is still, Dynamesh, and I think the eye, this area should be a little bit sloped. This is much more softer. This area should be a little bit like this. It's coming like this arc here. Great. Okay. So that's much closer to the original. And here the position of this corner. So if we take a look at this model, let me just increase the size and remove from that. So we have this center and it rises up and then it's just going that way. We don't have that rise. We don't have that drop and rise. So switching back, try to make that happen. And also this area, it's touching, so it's a little bit higher, and this was also a little bit higher. Okay, I know it's not perfect, but this from the front view, this should be kind of a set. All right, control and drag, and there we are. So that's how it goes. Now to make more accurate the things, we can use a Damien standard brush, but it will not make this wonder. So the reason it doesn't make that much of a wonder is because I'm using the Alt key to set it to the opposite. So now it's the opposite, and can you see the resolution? It's really low. So even if I give a try to emphasize on the edge, which one is pretty crucial if you want to accurately model the eye, it will be really hard. So I will just leave it as it is now, and I'm not worried about this too much because I know that the next time when I just raise the resolution a bit, it will be much better and I have more room and more data to work it out. Alright, so smoothing this area. But what else? We still have to clean up this. So I'm using the smooth and reset and blend it a little bit more with the eye. And this line is going a little bit different. So I will just pull on this. Yep, and just reset this back, and now using the BDS Damien standard and separate the nose a little bit more and look for the nose part. So let me dial this picture down, select the other one and dial that back up and look for the nose, which one is pretty crucial from the side view. And as you see, this one's already too high, so I'm looking for that. Okay, it's fair enough. Now this, the lip is protruding much more, so we have missing content from there. So BCB, and we need to pull this up. So we need to build this up, and I'm not worried about the shape of the lip. I'm worried about the volume before the lip. So I need to put the volume here. It's just the volume. Looking for the volume. BC. I'm sorry. BMV. And pulling this. Looking for the right proportions. Alright, so that's where we are. And now, this will be the starting point of the upper lip. Alright. And we definitely need another volume here. So BCB and a lower lip. Again, just talking about volumes, not really about I'm looking for the silhouette and not worried about the shape of the mouth yet. I'm looking for shadows, by the way. So the shadow, where's the shadow? Let me show this, because in here it's a little bit easier to recognize that. Okay, we have a shadow going on here, which was great, and we have a shadow below the bottom lip. So I try to match to those because those are pretty accurate. Pulling this up a bit. Okay, BCB. And we need more volume, and we have some shadows here, so we definitely have to push this back a bit. So we need to push that back in. Okay, what else do we need? So I will not make it to the final, and I will leave it as it is now and use the BDSM standard and just looking for the contour to help me, to guide me. Okay, so that's the contour basically. This one is not that lengthy. Now the nose seems to be a bit too wide, and we definitely need a contour here. Smoothing some areas, and the nose a bit wide, so I will use a BMV brush and just make it a little bit thinner. Now also there's this little curve, and I see the shadows, but here I don't see that curve. The nose looks to be pretty straight, so that will be the next part. Trying to push this in and make sure this one is rounded, and I'm rotating quite a lot. If it's too round, of course it could be too much, and we definitely need to narrow down the nose, narrow down this as well. Okay, because there was just too much there. And the nostrils, BDS, and start making these holes. So these holes are there, and from the side view these are just a little bit elongated. So we need to make the cavity and control drag and make sure it's updating. And the arc here, it's a little bit higher, so right now it's a little bit sloppy. So I will just use a BMV brush and push it away. Alright, so just push it to a little bit higher. And BDS, again, it's really low resolution, so this is why not everything is visible yet. And holding down the Alt key can help me to add to the mouth shape. So I'm holding the Alt key, and that can add a lot. And of course we can go and bump the volume, but it will be a little bit harder in Dynamesh. BIN, that's the next brush I do use now, and just adding volume, control drag, smoothing it up, adding some volume to the lower lip. Control drag because it needs to be filled, and also some volume to the top. Okay, we don't have the nose. It's not there yet. And we can have this separation. Of course, it's not that strong, but we can make it. This is fairly soft. Okay, if we rotate, this chin is too much in here, so we're pushing it back. And in the side view, it's clean that the chin is not going out enough. So we have to pull this out. And the volume of the mouth is not that much. So here is the line of the eye. And if we go full front, perspective off, here's the line of the eye. So the mouth should be a little bit more out. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so the resolution, the actual resolution is pretty low still. And we just clean up some areas. Smoothing the volumes and look for all directions. Okay, looking great. So this is all about the sizing. So is it the angles? Let me see it from the front. So Z, and just scale it down a bit. This one should be checked as well. Move it to the side, move this one in here, and look. So the nose shape, that's the nose volume. It will be fairly okay. This was a little bit too much. This area should be pulled back in. Later we have a cavity here, B8CB, and we have this tiny cavity in here. So that's definitely needed to be done. Maybe we need to fill in this area to add more volume to the lip. There's a chance that's necessary to do, and also that is. And it's time to think of the, okay, what's the nose size? The nose is a little bit off by the tip of the nose is just lower too much, and this should be a little bit more arched according to the figure, and the tip of the nose should be slightly higher. So if I check that curve, that works. The bottom lip is protruding more, and of course the upper lip is also more in the volume. Maybe the bottom part, the mouth is, yeah, going that way. Alright, now it's time to move on and work on the ears as well. So what to do with the ears? First of all, the helix is going in, BCB. The helix is on the right here, and it pushes in. So it starts, drives, and pushes in. We have a cavity. We have a cavity in here. That's pretty obvious. And control drag and refresh. That cavity is moving. We also have this little notch in here, and this is the tragus, and we have the opposite, the antitragus. So it's pulling out, and this one is going in. So we have this shape, and that goes in, and it actually has some room inside, but we have to first clean it up. Clean up the inside. Usually it's a good idea to keep this back solid first and model the ear itself, and then you can remove some material to make it thinner. Alright, so don't forget about this little area inside to create that nice shadow there. So Z, let me move this one down and crank this up a bit. And now the ears are a little bit more visible. So you have to cut this and hold the Alt key and definitely go into the volumes to create that edge. All right. And now we have the cavity. We're looking around, and there is the cavity. And we need to build back up the other volumes. But first, I'm just removing these. Okay, the earlobe is fairly small, so I will use the BMV move brush to get that earlobe back. So pulling, and actually her earlobe it attaches fairly sharp. So the BDS Debian standard brush can be handy to separate it. Okay, we won't be able to make it perfect at this resolution, but we can give it a try to add more. And usually this one is not flat, so we can inflate the BIN. We can inflate this a bit. Okay, so that is about the ear, and still there's this rhythm. So the here the helix is carving up. So I'm tracing now what I see there. Tracing up, going in there. This is fairly straight. Pulling in, make the changes. Pulling these as well. Going in. Okay, from the front, this is not that out. Usually we have this inside that protrudes. And can you see how edgy this earlobe is? This is not really happening in real life. And it looks really odd. And I see some models when we have these very thin earlobes, which one is just... It's so sad when a model is that much accurate and perfect, and you look at the ears and it looks like, you know, made in the 2000s with the polygonal modeling. So which one is great, but you know, with sculpting tools it should be better in many cases. All right, so adding more volumes, and where we have the BCB brush back again, clay buildup, and just building back on this thing that goes under. So this one is over, this one goes under, so there will be needed a edge right later on, and here we have this volume that carves into, so I will just emphasize that a little bit. Again, I won't be able to make it perfect at this resolution, but before we make the Z remesher change, it could be useful So going back in, adding this arc. So we are there, and here there's this little bump. There's this little bump. We are adding this up, and BDS that separates the shape. So we have this separation in here. Smoothing this out, we have this separation there to make it more accurate. And sometimes this piece is actually more outside than the outer rim. So I will try to make that happen here as well. Try to make it relatively looking nice. This is flat right now, so that's pretty boring. We have to go back and fix that, but that's it. So I'm adding up more volume on this, and yeah, even recessing this area for now, and that looks nice. Okay, now to make it round, because it's so flat, I'm using lightly this build-up brush and smooth, build-up brush and smooth. Now it's much more rounder. Okay, and we can fix many bumpiness when the conversion is done. All right, so these are the elements. These are the elements, basically. This is going in. Yeah, we have this connection. We have the cavity in here. This was a little bit thinner, so I'll just remove some of the material and put on here. And here as well. So remove. And that's it, basically, the ear. Okay, now it became a little bit larger than expected, but we can always dial this down. There it is. Of course, the eye orientation and everything could be addressed. Okay. Right, now it's time to convert it into a polymesh, and it's a sculptable mesh, but to recalculate it with ZBrush. So, but before we do that, some cavities and clavicles in here, just going up. And some negatives, and we don't have Adam's apple, but we have the throat, so the throat should be there. And this left to right helps a lot to create the throat, because it looks like this anyway. So this pattern can help to sculpt the throat. Usually we have some volume here. Muscles and various things belonging to the ear and the immune system. We have some muscles going on in the trapezius. So adding that up. And the clavicle could be a little bit more curvy. That looks nice, one thing, and usually it is curvy a little bit, at least in that direction. And there we go. This should be pushed back. So that curviness is there. Okay, I've just created a bit of a cavity in here, which one is not ideal, so I need to fill it back. But here we have some. Okay, that's pretty promising at the first. All right, so at this level, it's fine. It's fun to deal with. Okay, so it's believable that we have this volume. We have to fix the nose. I think we have to take care of the zygomatic arc, and the flatness is a little bit off. Let me just look at from the bottom. Okay, that looks nice. Here's the jawline. That is also working well. Usually we can create some negatives here and there. Okay, that's how it goes. The chin, it looks a little bit small to me, so we may add up more volume. The side view, the chin is a bit low. If I'm looking from this angle, she has a little bit softer chin. So BOV and looking for references. But the width is there. The width is there. It's just not that super harsh. And the ears now a little bit smaller. And round but smaller. Okay, and of course the nose maybe wider slightly, but before I do anything crazy, I will sculpt this in place. Okay, that's it. So that's the base, and I think the eyes should be duplicated. So going up to Z plugin, Subtool Master, and Mirror, and see it for ourselves. Okay, so she's looking now straight, and of course we don't have the eyelashes, which can add a lot to the whole thing, to the whole impression. But this is basically the base for the head model. Now this is still in ZBrush. I'm sorry, Dynamesh. So of course we can build up the higher resolution. So this model is actually about 250,000 polygons, so that will be nice to clean it up. Alright, it's time to make the changes and update the mesh from a Dynamesh model to a polymesh model with subdivision levels. So for that reason, I will hold down Control and click on this undo slider, and it becomes white. So now we have a set state of in the history. So we can walk down to geometry, turn off Dynamesh, go to ZBrush and make sure that symmetry is on, and the brush size is there. 5, that should be okay for this part. Usually I use lower for just the head, but it's fine for now. So ZBrush, and it takes some time. Okay, so once we are ready, this is how it looks. This is a fairly accurate but low resolution. Alright, some glitches here and there, so I can use some smoothing for sure, and maybe a move brush, just slightly fix it. Okay, that's it. And going up higher in the subdivision levels, so I'm pressing Ctrl D and go back to the subtool palette and use the projection, and this time project from history because I have this marked area. So project from history, and now I don't want to use polypaint, and here's the projection. Alright, so the eye is catching up, which was great. Okay, the resolution is about 42,000, which was not that high, so Ctrl D again, and have another subdivision level and project history. No, I don't want to use that polypaint data. Now here we are, this is there, 171,000. Yeah, let me look for this particular resolution. I think this should be okay for work further. Alright, so if we are increasing it too early, it can just slow down the process instead of helping it. Alright, so it's time to look around the eye and the nose and the mouth separately, and then we will make some fixes. Okay, so Z to go and look for this eye, make it fairly big. Alright, so Z, that is it. Now working on the other side just to have a better comparison. Okay, and we have in the spotlight, I think the spotlight opacity should be a little bit different. Alright, so we have this opacity and crank it up. Z and BDS that means standard, to clean this up. Okay, so definitely I want an edge somewhere here, so I'm using the Alt key and inserting and make it a cleaner shape. Alright, so we don't have eyelashes, but we still want to have some shadow up here. Alright, so some smoothing and holding the Alt key to extrude these, and I think I will just increase the resolution because it seems to be less than enough. Right, that's it. And we also have an edge running above the eye, which one is fairly common, just there, looking for smoothing it. Right, so that generates a shadow. Now this is fairly high in here, so I'll just fill this up and carve it to a little bit lower. That's it. And we have a little bit more volume. I see a shine here, but here there is no volume. So a BCB brush can help us to add more volume in here, in this area, and smooth it out and up. We don't need to smooth everything, but at this stage it may be a little bit easier to see it clearly. Usually we have some cavity here, so there's this emptiness, something going on. So let me just zoom and smooth it. And see, alright, rotate around. That's good. Okay, we definitely have a line here. So here starts this little negative, and that's missing, and that is missed a lot. So we definitely need to create that. Starts from somewhere here and just goes down a bit. And I assume we have to push this area back a bit as well. So smooth, and the BFA flatten brush, that's great to recess some areas without losing the data or info, without crashing the info. Okay, and there is another set, so I will just push this in a little bit further until it will become somewhat flat, and another BDS, that means standard, needs to be done, and starting from here. So there's another bag under the eye, which one is just very light, but it is there. So that should be somewhere around here. Okay, again, it should be just very light. We don't need to emphasize this too much because this is a young face, and but be careful because makeup can really distort the look in a good way, but you know, when we are talking about sculpting, it could be just a little bit hard to catch an original image. So BCB and smoothing, adding some back to this bag, and it's just smooth, and I'm looking for the highlights. So So I'm looking for the highlight. We don't need that crazy lot of data. Just some flatness here and there, and that's enough. So we don't really need to have it a visual feedback that much, that strong. But when the model is receiving light or changing up, then it's a good idea to be able to see these small shapes. Okay, so just these small shapes, very subtle. Okay, now the corner of the eye is a little bit more pointy, so a small move brush may be good in a way. And we have this area pulled down. This is also a little bit lowered according to that eye, and this one should be a little bit higher. And of course this one need a pinch, BPI, and pinching this area to emphasize that corner, and BMV back because I was just too aggressive with this. So follow the line. Follow the line. Again, it's a good trick if you place your brush there and try to carve that on the picture, and then going back, and now your hand can pick up and memorize what you do. Okay, there we are. Alright, so the eyes are fairly close. We don't have eyelashes, but it's pretty clean. Some smoothing here and there. And we need a little bit more sharpness around here. So BD as them standard, and using the Alt and ups, excuse me, using Control. And just painting in, sculpting in that edge. And using BPI pinch to sharpen that area. Just to bring in the edges. So this is what happens. I'm bringing in the edges, and the more edges I have in the geometry, this will be sharper. So that helps a lot to create an accurate eye shape. And also here, I'll just make that happen to create a nice clean edge. Okay, probably this one BMV, this one's a little bit higher. No, that was too much. Okay. But the outer corner should be higher in general. How much? Let me see how much. A little bit more to the front, a little bit closer there. Something like that. And of course the eyelashes are missing. Alright, now it's time to move on to the eyes. Oh, sorry, nose. So we should have a better view of the nose by picking this particular image and scale it up and look for the nose. So there we go. Of course there's huge eyelashes. That's really hard unless you're completely modeling it. Okay, so here's the shape of the nose, which one is fairly close, I guess. Okay, the cavities here are small compared to the thing that we see in a picture. So there should be a little bit more depth. Yep, so that's now it's a little bit cleaner. And of course we have this the nostril. So right now just starting out, not really It's not about creating the negative forms. We don't really care about negative forms, honestly. We care about the all negatives are practically a meeting point of two positive round form. And this is what we're looking for. So this is a joint, actually. The joint of this one and this shape and even this third shape that's coming in. So now we are adding a bit in here to separate the shapes and the forms, and I try to follow with my strokes. I try to follow the direction of the shape and form. There's a little bit of a flatness going on here, so we'll add that back. And also there's a little bit of a flatness in the middle of the nose, usually just a light one. Okay, nothing crazy. And we have more volume in this area. This is more rounded in here. So smoothing that out. Okay, maybe this one here we still have something more. Alright, that's looking good. Now this one is a little bit more narrow, as I see. This was quite thin and quite turning back in. So here, and it's just a little bit deeper inside and also thinner. That is it. And we have to have a much more accurate cut, BDS. Yeah, so I'm using the Alt key and creating that edge a little bit more refined. Okay, BMV, should we move it? Alright, and then here's also a cavity, so we are adding up. This should be a little bit deeper. Again, we are looking for creating the nice shadows, so that's pretty important in all angle. We are not in Dynamesh anymore, so that's why it is always a little bit harder. And yeah, guess what? BMV and make it wider here, and it's just smoothing out here. And this is a little bit pointy. Okay. Yeah, I like it now. Okay, what else? The ridge, this edge is a little bit more defined, more accurate, more sharp. So I will use ZBrush to carve away some material and look for the sizing. Okay, so that looks better. Actually, here we should have some little bit more taken away. And of course the shape of the face that is a little bit filled. So by adding this volume in here, we can start to emphasize the cheeks, because she has a pretty articulated cheek. So let me show it from this angle. You can see, so this one is still, compared to this angle, this one's still lacking. So when I rotate and looking for the distance in here, it's clearly visible that this is a little bit higher and more out. So that angle, this is fairly okay. This looks fairly good. The eyebrows are missing, but we need to put more in here. So that needs to be added. And I'm looking for the other side, so building up this area. Okay, how much do we need? Actually, it's getting closer. I think now with some smoothing we can check it. Okay, so it is a little bit more believable. Okay, and definitely we have another form that's coming from the nose on this area, and that is also a positive form. So if I'm rotating in here, this should be a little bit more articulate. Not much, but just slightly. So we need to add that shape in here. Just going down, looking for the silhouette. So I'm looking for just the basic. Okay, silhouette is the width. The width looks okay. Alright, from the side view we have some cavity here. I'm not sure that cavity is a result of actual material missing. I think she has a little bit of a stronger jaw, so I will just use a large BCB brush and build up some volume around the chin and the jaw line, and that may result in then more articulate cavity in this area. But I'm just adding a little bit manually and looking for the, yeah, we don't have that much, so we don't add too much in here, but there we go. Okay, that looks believable. I think her chin is, or the lips are a little bit, this area is fairly short, okay, but the mouth shape is not there yet, but we can work on it. Alright, so BDS, and reduce the size, and I'm looking for this two lines under the nose, and holding Alt key again, and this is fairly thin, fairly narrow, starts from here, and then there's this negative, and just smooth out. Basically I'm looking for the contours, shadows again. Now I'm using Alt key again to draw that mouth shape. And look for that silhouette. And we have this corner. And just going up a bit and going down. So something like that. And we have these shapes going around. This one may be a little bit smoother. Here we need to fill up a few things, so I'm just using this to fill, and BCB fill this area. And also this one we have some more volumes. The center, yes, we have the center. And still some more volume. And I'm afraid the resolution won't be enough to actually make the perfect lines, but it is getting better. Alright, so we definitely need to add more shadows on the bottom of the lip. So for that reason we need to cut this a little bit more accurate. Here it's there's some more depth, adding some more shadows, and starting here. Okay, so the top lip looks fine. I need, I guess, pull a bit more. So if I'm looking for a side view, and let me go back with all and select just this one and increase it. and look for the whole rhythm of the mouth. So it is a pretty bad resolution, but still it's a great help. Okay, so this is fairly clean. We have this line starting from here and turning on this area. So just tiny adjustments. The shape is a little bit more curvy, and this should be pushed in as well. But here usually we have a little bit more volume, more shape. But let me check. Yes, something is missing here from here. So BCB in and load it up. So I'm using just a bamboo tablet, nothing special. 10 years old bamboo tablet, so it's my travel gear. Travel light. Okay, so BCB and adding more to the bottom lip. And we definitely have yeah, so this should be more protruded, more articulate in here. How much? Even more. Okay, so there we are. Even more. There's a lot going on. Yeah, okay, so that's getting better. This shape is looking nice. Maybe the distance is still too much, and the lip is actually, so if you check this distance and compare it here, this is a little bit off. So the nose should be shorter, the mouth should be a little bit higher. So a couple things going on, but in general the placement looks fairly good. So now I'm just smoothing this out, and now we have to take care of this rhythm inside the head. So if we just zoom in, this is what happens. So if the eye is there and the mouth is there, so there's plenty of things missing. So nose should be shorter, mouth should be higher a little bit. So walking down Shift D and using masking control and using the mask lasso tool, and now I'm selecting this area and even more, and tapping and invert, and use the move tool and tap on to make it center, turn off perspectivity, and just give it a try to lift this up slightly. Okay, how is it going? Yeah, let me go back and see for myself. Maybe it's too much. Okay, if I check it, was it how much? Okay, it was too, yeah, that's fine. Now I'm happy with the nose, and the bottom, the lip should be also a little bit higher. So using it, this one, move it up. Okay, Q, drag, and D, going higher in the resolution. Perspective turn back on, and D again. So now it's an even higher resolution, and the volume of the mouth should be a little bit more, and the chin should be a little bit more articulate. So definitely we need to carve away from here. So BCB, carve away. If I compare, again, just break it down to yes or no questions. Is it good in the height? If not, correct. Is it good in size? If not, check what's wrong and try to correct. You don't have to do everything at once. You always do some general work on certain areas, And as you're moving forward, then you have the chance to make corrections. The other thing is, let your eye rest. Let your eye rest. You don't have to do everything at a time and make sure everything is perfect. You always go back and review what you already have, and if your question fails and there's no right answer, just leave it as it is and move forward and spend some time with it, and your brain, believe me, will figure it out for you. So it's just a matter of time in many cases. So adding more to the chin, adding more to this area. I will use the infilate brush, which one is a little bit risky sometimes because it can generate quite hard to control volumes, just as I did now. So I'm using a BFA flatten brush and just simply trying to fix this. Yes, okay, looks okay now. It is much better. Alright, so usually we can have a slight contour here, BDS, as well, and still deepen this area. Maybe using the pinch brush, BPI pinch brush, to make it more sharp and somewhat cleaner. Okay, so the proportions are a little bit different, and maybe the nostrils are way too close. So let me just check this and see the images, see the references, especially this one. Yep, let me increase the size of it and that, and look. Now for the solution. The chin is a little bit longer and not as strong. Soften a little bit and pull in this direction. Oh yeah, the chin looks okay, but I think this I miss from this area. There's a muscle that works there, so here in this area there's this muscle, so probably that misses. Okay, it's not as strong. BFA and flatten this. Sometimes there's this flattened area on the chin. Okay, I like it better. With that fill in, we clearly see that edge and the shadow is appearing here, which was great. I think the chin should be a little bit forward. And we need more volume in here. And the chin is a little bit more forward. But this was a little pointy, it became pointy. So I need to push this back in. It is there. It's definitely there, but it's more rounded. Not as pointy. Also the eyebrows. So here, the eyebrows are coming out a little bit more. Looking for the silhouette. Alright. That's it, and the nostrils should be a little bit wider. Yes, it is more believable. Here we still have some angle issue. Okay, let's get closer now. This fill is more significant in this area, and I assume we have more on this side as well. It looks to me her lips are somewhat altered. Okay, and of course the painting is missing a lot, but we definitely have a better edge in here. So we'll just fill this to create a contrast in BDS, and adding a bit more accurate edge in here. Center of the lip, definitely important. There's this drop in here. There's this clean shadow at the bottom of the lip as well. Now let me see how I can make it, because I assume that this one is not enough, so I have to fill this a bit more. Yeah, walk out. Okay, looks fine. Now at this stage, of course, we can always refine. It's an endless process. We can add more to it. But right now, the basics are there. So even without materials, it looks somewhat good as a foundation within the 2 hours range. I will add some other things, but before we finalize this, usually it's a good idea to have at least some volume for the hair, because that also alters the whole look. So to make a hair, it's relatively easy to do it here. Right, so go subtool and insert, and we are inserting a 3D sphere, and switch to move, and right away turning on X, and just scale it down in multiple directions. And this will be, imagine that this is something like a brain inside the figure, and that is just practically just a hair volume, nothing special. So lift this up. We don't need to make it too big, too early. Q and the BMV move brush, and just start pulling until it's somewhat there. Okay, here we don't need, so I will just push this back. We don't want any conflict with the eyeballs, so I'm pushing these back. This one's pulled back down because we have hair there. Okay, and then switching back to transparency and switching to BCB clay builder brush, and start to build up. Just to paint through until it starts emerging from underneath the model. So I'm looking for the hairline. This is pretty coarse. We will refine it. We will add more resolution to it. But right now it's just quickly look and get the hairline. So we need definitely more, and BMV, and just move it slightly, move it out. Okay, so we have some hair in here, and the hairs goes in on this line, and the forehead is a little bit more front. So I'm working on the hair, still working on it. Again, the purpose is just add the volume we're looking for. It helps a lot to compare to the original picture that we have, and we can justify if the head needs more work or not. ZBrush, select them, just adding more quickly, and probably here's the end of it, and here it just falls off. Okay, something like that. Okay. That's right. Okay, so that's basically the volume of it, and if we wish we can add the rest of the hair. It's not visible in here. I will just add a sphere here and alter it slightly, but nothing else. Insert sphere and go to move and just use a scale. Scale it down and just push it in. Okay, just to add some volume and use the BCB brush to generate a shape, a bun-like shape, without going into the details of it. Alright, just to have the impression that we have this overall volume. Okay, so that much of a bun is added. Alright, so here's the head compared to the picture. And of course we need eyelashes and eyebrows. Those can help a lot in texture as well. But the sculpting part is, except for again some hair details and other parts, is there. So this is what you can do probably under in 2 hours. At first, of course, it will take some more time, but it's a fun and really enjoyable process, and a really rewarding one. So the best advice is start from the big shapes. Don't hurry things. Let them sit, and go back, revisit, and check if something is off, and make the corrections accordingly. Alright, you don't have to work on a single thing at a time. Try to keep an eye on multiple areas and work it up. Alright, so sculpting something is a process, and the end result, when the end result is there, you can say, okay, is it good or not? But during the process, it is just a series of decisions, and it's just an improvement, the process of improvement. So just relax and enjoy the process. Thank you. Goodbye. Cheers.